it was a bad beginning. It was a bad beginning because it wasn't what we promised the American people, what President Obama promised the American people, that we would sit down together. Look, I appreciate the fact that the president came over, talked to Republicans. That's not how you negotiate a result.
Welcome back. That was Senator John McCain on the Sunday talk show circuit, taking aim at President Obama's stimulus plan. The man who led his party to defeat in November has reemerged with a vengeance in the past few weeks as a leading voice against the stimulus bill. But how much credibility does the maverick and former media darling have, since his own ideas were rejected resoundingly by voters in the fall? Progressives say none. Every day at this time, we're going to bring you a key issue in the progressive blogosphere. And joining us today is Josh Marshall, founder and publisher of the blog TalkingPointsMemo.com. Josh, on the issue of bipartisanship, which is what John McCain was complaining about, when is it important and when is it not, in your view?
Look, I think the American people don't want the parties to come together and just disagree for the sake of disagreeing. But sometimes they actually think differently, and if that's the case, there's really nothing wrong in people voting their beliefs, and sometimes that ends up in a case like this where you have something close to a party line vote. The problem is that compared to what we saw in the 90s and compared to what we saw for most of this decade, President Obama actually went out of his way to court Republicans. He went up to the Hill a few times, talked to them, he had them over to the White House. He actually put a lot more in this bill to appeal to Republicans that a lot of Democrats wanted. But the thing is, a lot of the Republicans just didn't think this, notwithstanding that almost every economist thinks something like this is necessary, a lot of Republicans, they didn't agree with this. And more than that, they decided there was really no political angle for them in supporting the president. So what they did was to keep saying, oh, we want everything to be bipartisan, but actually shot him down or refused to, come to any kind of compromise at all. They wanted it to be like this. They wanted to completely oppose it. So basically, John McCain just doesn't have, or frankly, any of the Republicans have any credibility on this, crocodile tears, concern trolling about how they're really, they were hoping President Obama would do a little better on the bipartisan front, but he's having a hard time. I mean, it's just silly. And John McCain, he's kind of just become a whiner at this point.
Why do you think the media puts John McCain on? Do you think it's because of some sort of a collusion that the media has, because of inside Washington, or just because of, to a certain extent, the media, let's be frank, does like conflict?
I think the media likes conflict a lot, and that's just how things are. I think that, John McCain, since the mid-90s, especially since the 2000 election, has been this darling of the media. You saw that through most of last year's presidential election until the end, when his credibility was just kind of shot. So a lot of people, a lot of journalists like John McCain, there's this idea that he's still that kind of maverick idea and a straight shooter and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's basically it. A lot of the reporters like John McCain, and frankly, this is what he does. He plays up to the Beltway media and whines a lot, and I think that's,
Josh,
that's why.
What about the argument McCain made that Barack Obama himself said that the public would have 5 days to look at any legislation before he signed it? It's going to be 4 days when he signs the bill tomorrow. If you look at S-chip or some of the other legislation, Obama signed it immediately. What about that argument, though, that regardless of whether it's McCain or somebody else, when Obama says, or when Congressman Schock says, hey, the Obama promised 5 days, he's not keeping that promise, is that important or not?
Compared to the other things that the country's dealing with right now, I don't think it's the most important, but I think this is actually a legitimate issue. Back in the last administration, you had a lot of bills where the people who voted on it only had, like an hour to read like a 1,000-page bill, and then, a lot of stuff like this about process where things got kind of screwed up. So I think that's actually a legitimate point, and I don't remember the precise promise that Obama made, but I think, this is legit. The idea that that Republicans are really just, kind of aw shucks upset that Obama's having such a hard time with bipartisanship is really just a crock. They went into this wanting this result. They decided that, again, there was no angle for them in supporting him, because if he does well, it won't accrue to their benefit. So their only political hope is that this fails badly. And if that's the case, they don't want any of their caucuses in the House or the Senate to have supported it. It's really that simple.
The website is talkingpointsmemo.com. Josh Micromarshall, thanks so much for coming on. Great stuff as always. The website is terrific. Whether you agree with Josh or not, it's a terrific, terrific resource, and we appreciate you coming on, Josh.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Coming up...